Well, hey everybody, West McDonald here with my good friend Kenneth Edmonds. How are you, Ken?
I am fine. I'm back home. I have good internet. Life is good.
Back on terra firma. Yeah, I'm still amazed, and I love this idea we talk about. Obviously, remote work all the time, right? And you exemplify it more than anybody, right? When you're on a cruise ship, being able to get some kind of access either on your phone or from the Wi-Fi on the ship, and being able to join in on these things, right? It's just it always just amazes me every time you come on from somewhere else, and uh, and that's probably a good segue for one of the things that we always love to ask people is where are you watching from? So
That's
Ken,
my
you're
I would
yeah.
say that's my favorite question because we have an audience that's global. So we have friends that join us from the UAE, from the continent, sometimes from England. You're in Canada. I'm in the US. We'll have to ask our guest where he's from today.
Yes, absolutely. And for everyone that does tune in, remember to leave your questions and comments. If you have anything to say, join in. We always love conversation with folks. And Ken, maybe before we bring our guest in today, maybe you can talk a little bit about Stephen Howard.
Well, he is an author and he proposes an unusual idea. His book that he and I think talked about a while back on my podcast goes from making better decisions to making better thoughts or having a better process. Normally we think we start with the mindset and work that way, but he kind of goes the other direction. So I think he's going to have some content, and he's doing some new things I noticed on his website. So he'll have some things to show,
Well, that's great.
share.
And
Rented lips.
without further ado, then I'm going to bring Stephen in. How are you, Stephen?
I'm great, guys. Good to see you, and happy holidays to everybody.
Yeah, happy holidays to you too. As we're getting on, towards the end here, right? It's we've got a few more days of trying to crush out the year, and I really appreciate you taking the time, for us and our audience.
Well, appreciate it. Good to be with your guests. Good to be with you guys. And this is going to be one of my final pieces of work for the year. I'm closing down tomorrow.
Oh, good for you. Yeah, I've got a couple days left too, but starting to get that stress level of realizing all the things I haven't done to prepare for the holidays. So yeah, but our kids are getting older, so it's not quite as much of an importance, like the making sure that all the gifts are under the tree like they were. One is in university and the other one's a senior in high school, so that kind of part of it's getting a little bit easier anyway. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I understand that.
Yeah, and hello, Paul. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us in from Edmonton, Alberta, and that's another Canadian, eh? So good to see another Canadian coming in to join us. I miss Edmonton. I used to get up there to watch the Oilers back when I lived in Alberta. I lived just south of Red Deer, and Edmonton was my team back in the day when I did watch hockey. I don't really watch much of it anymore. And during the days of Wayne Gretzky, back when he was a rookie player, young player, it was a pretty amazing time. So good to see you.
And Stephen, where are you joining us from today?
Well, I'm going to continue the trend here. I'm due south of you both. I'm in Mexico City, so we've gone Canada, United States, Mexico.
Wow.
Oh, very nice.
Wow. Now, do you live in Mexico City or you go down there?
No, I live here. Pretty much about 90% of the time I'm living here. I still have a place in Southern California, and my company's based in California, but I'm pretty much now a full-time resident of Mexico.
Wow. Love it. And I used to actually work with some folks that had businesses in Mexico City as well. Back in my print audit days, I don't know if you remember, Ken, but they had representation in Latin America and Mexico City. So if anyone's watching from the old days in Mexico City, good to see you.
Yeah. Well, I would say again, just briefly on the subject of this interconnected world. I deal with people in Asia on Fiverr sometimes for projects I need. The company that does my editing for my videos is in Mexico City. So truly, the world has become so interconnected that where you are doesn't necessarily have anything to do with where you do business.
Not at all, but I need the name of that editing company in Mexico City, Ken, so I'm going to reach out to you.
Okay. Yeah, I'll share it with you.
Well, that's great. And hey, Steve, we really appreciate you joining us today. And maybe you can start off a little bit, give our audience some background on sort of what drives you, what your book has done for you, and maybe what's coming down the pipe.
All right. Well, thanks, Wes. As you see by the accent, born in the United States, grew up and educated United States, but have spent most of my adult life outside the U.S. I lived in Asia for 21 years, worked for 4 different multinational companies before I started my own business. Then I moved to Australia for 12 years outside Melbourne in the southeast, and went back to the U.S. about 10 years ago. And as I said, about 18 months ago, I kind of migrated down here to Mexico City. So what keeps me moving is, quite honestly, I just love the international arena. I love different cultures, working with people, helping people overcome the barriers of communications across cultures, and understanding each other as human beings. So that's what kind of pushes me.
Yeah, I would say it does me as well. And I would say in this day and age, that's probably, more important than ever, right? And, certainly I think that one of the things we get towards the end of this year, what kind of advice might you be giving people trying to finish up this week?
Um, you talk about stress, and we in the book talks about decision making and how stress impacts decision making. This is a very stressful time of the year, and so the people I'm coaching, the last message I have for everyone I'm coaching the last 2 weeks has been very simple: find some personal time. Yes, you're going to spend time with the family and friends, but that can also be stressful. Yes, you're going to spend time with your kids. Yes, you might do a little bit of work. Find a couple half days for yourself, and what I say, do some Ken time, do some West time, even if it means going to a movie by yourself. Just get away and get away from people, and let the brain recover. So that's my main message here at the end of the year for folks.
Yeah, we forget sometimes, right? And I know that the stress I was just talking about a little bit earlier, just trying to get ready for the end of the Christmas season, and certainly different levels of stress, right? And I got to believe that the certain level of stress, at least the way that I work in my world, I don't know if I'd call it a comfortable level of stress. Maybe it's one that that I work well in, right? That there's this zone. Once I get over it, extremely unproductive and probably in disarray. And whenever I'm below it, if I don't have a certain amount of stress, then I find as well, it's very difficult. Is that a fair statement to say that there's a healthy amount of stress that can be involved in decision making too?
Oh, absolutely. Not so much in decision making, I don't think, but in getting things done, getting the task done, getting the flow. I mean, when I write a book, particularly as deadlines approach, I can be under stress when I'm doing the editing process, but it helps me focus. So athletes will tell you good stress. The pregame stress before you go out on the court or the ice hockey rink or whatever can be beneficial to you. It kicks in some adrenaline. Stress doesn't really help your decision making, though. In all honesty.
No. And maybe let's talk a little bit about your book, Better Decisions, Better Thinking, and Better Outcomes. Maybe you can take us through what the inspiration for, that was, how it got started.
Okay, yeah, thanks. It got started because my father suffered early stage Alzheimer's before he passed on, and I was his primary caregiver. So I started doing research about what I should be doing as the caregiver. And then, of course, you know the old concept of Alzheimer's is that it's genetic, and I found out no, genetics only plays about a 5% in Alzheimer's. So that was relieving to me because I was afraid, am I going to inherit this, and who's going to take care of me, which is basically nobody. So I started doing the research into Alzheimer's, and then I understood as I did the research how as we just talked, stress impacts decision making. I started talking to leaders about, hey, you should take care of your health, you should be more healthy, and they all said, I'll worry about that when I retire. But then as I continued the research, and I realized that stress impacts our decisions, and therefore it impacts our bottom lines, that all of us as leaders, and it impacts our decisions and our bottom lines. Now I got leaders listening to me. So the whole book took that concept of the first thing, and that's why the title is, as Ken kind of alluded to there, is we need to make the first decision is to get ourselves under control. And then we can think better, and then we can make better decisions.
Right. Yeah. And I wonder sometimes, like, even in my own mind, making, better decisions, right? Do you have some tips for folks out there that may be looking to make some better decisions for not just the end of the year, but going into the new year, right? because this is the time of year when we all make decisions about bettering our business.
Mhm. Yeah, great idea, great concept, and I think it's that time to slow down. It's that time to think, slow down to speed up, so to speak. One of the things I like to tell people is become a first responder, not a first reactor. We're under, everyone's running 24/7. Everyone's going full at it, and even as we plan our, 2023 strategic plans or business plans or whatever, we're doing it when we have moments to do so. We need to slow down. We need to respond and not react to people, don't react to events, don't react to situations. Then we make better decisions. We're more rational. When we're under stress, when we're emotionally hijacked, a phrase that Daniel Goleman came up with years ago, the back part of our brain, the amygdala, takes over. And that's the emotional control center. And it actually prevents the prefrontal cortex, the front part of our brains, which is the rational control center, from operating. It takes over. And we've all made the comment where we said, I was so angry, I couldn't think straight. Well, that's why. That's the physiology behind it. We're so angry, the emotional control center is preventing us from thinking straight.
Wow. So is that sorry, go ahead, Ken.
I was going to say, I think that's a challenge for a lot of business leaders. And it's one of the things I talk about when I talk to service managers and I teach my class, is the fact that they have to buy out time for planning and buy out time when they wall off the world. And it is so hard because so many of us, and I go back to a little bit of Stephen Covey about, the making sure of the most important things. And so what we wind up doing, I know I'm guilty of this, and I talk to service managers that are guilty of this, is we let the things that are urgent, like a ringing phone, a ping in the inbox, a text message, all of those things, sometimes we let those crowd in and prevent us from doing the things that are really important.
It's so true. And one of the things I counsel people on is people in that situation. I've got a guy I'm coaching right now, and I said, and he says, I'm always too busy. I can't even set up a coaching session. I'm too busy. I said, well, if you don't set up the coaching session, nothing's going to change. So here's what we're going to do. I want you to block just 30 minutes. Just the world will not end. Your company will not go down the tube in 30 minutes. Your boss will not fire you if he can't find you in 30 minutes. I know his boss anyway, so I know that's true. And then now we're stretching it to an hour, once a week, an hour. And then it's going to be, once every 2 weeks right now, an hour. And then it's going to be once a week. You just have to put that time aside and trust your people, delegate them. I mean, what happens if you're on my analogy is what happens if you're on an airplane, you're running a business, whatever you're doing, you're on an airplane for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. You can't be reached. The business has to continue. The world's going to continue. Your family's going to continue. Trust in others, and they won't let you down.
Yeah. And I think some of it's a bit of common sense too, right? When you think of people saying, I don't have time to get an oil change. Well, I'll tell you what, that scheduled oil change is a lot better than what comes if you don't do it, right? And
absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, one of the concepts that you do talk about in your book is you get into this idea of neuroplasticity, right? And, the brain, and I'm older, I'm 52 now, right? So I'm sure that my neuroplasticity is not quite what it used to be. But, what kind of tips might you have for people that are, behind the science, to be able to help them to get better at increasing it?
Well, here's my Santa Claus present for you, West. Your brain does continue neuroplasticity well into our 70s, probably into our 80s. The researchers haven't built, not enough 80-year-olds running around to do enough testing on. But look, I learned in high school the same thing. I learned in high school our brain stops growing at age 23 or 24 or something like that. Well, now because of the last 20 years of MRI technology and other stuff, neuroscientists can prove that our brain will continue to grow if we take care of it, and we have to take care of it through lifestyle changes, not crossword puzzles. On the other hand, so here's the negative to it, is if you sit around in meetings all day, and then go and sit on the couch all night and watch TV, your brain will actually shrink. The UCLA scientists have shown that your brain will actually get smaller if you so a little bit of exercise, a little bit of walking, a little bit of things like that will help your brain grow well into your 70s and probably your 80s. So you're going to be okay.
Man, I feel so bad now because you described my day yesterday perfectly.
Well, once in a while is okay. It's like habits. I mean, look,
Yeah.
we're all going to overeat on the 24th and 25th. It doesn't mean we can't get back to a healthy lifestyle on the 26th or 27th.
Yes. And of
That
course,
sort
I
of thing.
joke. I got lured into watching 1883, which is a Yellowstone prequel, which
Okay.
highly recommend. And it is definitely binge worthy. I'm not sure if I'm learning anything or increasing my neuroplasticity, but there it is.
Probably not, but it's okay. You're lowering your blood pressure, so that's okay.
Yeah, but I'm with you. Like I'm a big believer in continuous learning, right? And that's one of the things that I try and do is to make sure that every day that I'm delving into something that I didn't know before, right? And really trying to get my brain to flex. One of the things, it's not directly tied to neuroplasticity, but I have been reading recent articles in which quantum physicists are starting to look at the relationship of sort of quantum entanglement and the brain body experience, right? There's all this crazy stuff that is going on with the science of understanding consciousness, right? And again, I think that the brain is such a mysterious and I don't know, I would say vast place, right? That it's a universe unto itself. And, trying to make sure that we, maintain it for all those years is absolutely critical. And you give me some hope because I do have people in my family that have also suffered dementia or Alzheimer's. And watching that for anyone that hasn't experienced that firsthand, it's horrible, right? I mean, it is absolutely, one of the most devastating things in the world. So certainly I think we can all do a better job of taking care of ourselves and making sure that we're doing whatever we can to thwart that. Right. So,
Yeah, and it's not hard in honesty. I mean, here's an easy tip for everybody. And Sarah, thanks for your comment there. I see you're absolutely right. It doesn't help our brain grow, binge watching. But for instance, the brain likes new things. So you're right. Continuous learning is great. But even a simple thing, if you are going back to the office these days, take a different route. You're going to go grocery
yeah.
shopping. Take a different route. Notice. Oh, there's a new building over there. Oh, they planted a tree over there. Oh, look at that garden. It's got some flowers, and just switch it up. The brain likes first thing, but we get into habits. 95% of us, I am sure, get in the car and drive the same way to the supermarket, park almost in the same spot or near the same spot. We probably have a routine. We go through the grocery store. We either start the vegetable aisle and work our way over to the deli, or we start the deli and work our way over to the milk section or whatever happens to be. Do the same thing in the supermarket. Change it up. Skip aisles. See, it's just do things differently. The brain will appreciate it.
Yeah, little things, right? And my wife will tell you she's very annoyed with me because every time we travel somewhere, I shut the GPS off, and she says, "Where are we going?" And I'm saying, "Well, I don't know yet, but hopefully it'll get us there if my sense of direction is good." And most times it doesn't. Most times we end up pretty lost, but
Life's a journey.
yeah, no, it's
Well, I was going to say, I went to see the doctor this week, and I had a long drive to a place I'd never been. And I'm a GPS guy because elsewise I'm not going to get there, and the GPS took me one way, brought me home a different way. So maybe the GPS now is programmed to help my neuroplasticity.
Possibly. It just probably knows what the traffic jams are. But here's a scary thought for you. Next time you're driving to some place you don't know, you think, I am relying on this little box that somebody created. And I hope no one's hacking it because I'm going down the route it tells me to.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's not as much fun as it used to be because in the old days, the precision of GPS was bad that they would think you were somewhere you weren't. And it was fun to have that conversation. Get back on route. Turn left. Get on road. It thinks you're in the field or something. Now they're a little more precise.
Recalculating.
Yeah, that too. A lot of that. But I was going to say, I want to touch on a book I read I'm trying to get better at this habit, but I really love this book. And I think it ties to what you're saying. And that's The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And he talks about this morning process of getting up and spending some time in meditation, take some time to journal, do some physical exercise. But he put together this program of things and what I find is the better I do it, and to spend some time, part of it is spend time planning your day so that you get those big rocks into your day, so to speak. and I know the better I go through that process, the better I feel, and the better my brain seems to work. Your thoughts?
I love the process. I think everyone's an individual. And so take that and inculcate it into your lifestyle. For instance, I'm a morning person. I wake up at 5:30. My brain kicks in. I'm working at 5:45. I don't want to meditate. I will meditate at 4 o'clock in the afternoon because I personally know that's my low period during the day. And I also know, talking about decision making, I won't make decisions between 4 and 5 o'clock during the day unless I've had a chance to either meditate or take a 20-minute nap, because I know that my brain's tired. I'll make a decision at 7 o'clock in the morning now. I'm different. Other people now, 7 o'clock in the morning, don't even talk to me until my second cup of coffee. At 7:45, you can talk to me about a decision. We're all different. So I like the process of the book. I like the concept. I just recommend everyone understand themselves. I think the best 2-word phrase ever written in history was above the Temple of Apollo in Greece. And it simply said, know thyself. So know yourself. Take what I write, the tips I give people, hey, take that and adapt it to you and make it work for you. That's the best advice I can give you.
Yeah, I'm like you. I'm a morning person, right? My creative energies are always at their peak. Pretty much by the time I jump out of bed, I'll have a quick cup of coffee and then I'm good to go. So I like to have those periods for any creative work that I'm doing. And in the evenings, that's when my brain shuts down. So I can do something like go for a walk, sit down and have a chat with my wife, but try and get me to do anything, in the evening that's like you said, for decision making.
Yeah.
But my wife's the opposite. She, like, her evening, energy just pops up, right? So she's ready to do things, and in the morning, not so much. So I love this concept of, know thyself, right?
Yeah. My girlfriend's the same way. She's more of an she's happily working till 11 o'clock at night, which works well for me because I can watch my NBA basketball games between 8 o'clock and 11 o'clock at night while she's working.
So rapid.
Not quite, but it's okay.
No, it's not been our year so far. That's for sure. Yeah, I love it. Well, one of the other things about making decisions, obviously, right, is that I think the ones that are, going into the new year are probably some of the, the most complex ones that we have, at least from a business perspective, which is a lot of our audience, right? And, there are groups where they get away for a couple of days and work together. So when we're talking about better thinking and better outcomes, is groupthink helpful for that? When you're getting together with more people to do those kind of things, is there a mix or a blend?
Getting the group together is good. I mean, the definition of groupthink is really everyone thinks alike. So it's like, everyone around the room's agreeing with whoever, particularly the boss. So, but yeah, getting people involved, very definitely getting their inputs. And for 2 reasons. One, you get better ideas, you get more ideas. But secondly, in today's world, and a lot of the research I did for the more current book that came out a few months ago, is that part of the reason for the Great Resignation is people being upset because they're not engaged. They're not listened to. They're not asked for their ideas. And, we're now hiring people for their brains, not their hands. And particularly the younger generation, the millennials, the Generation Zs, Generation Xs, if you don't get them involved in the process, and not necessarily in the strategy, but in the execution, how are we, you may come up with this, the leader, this is our strategy going forward, particularly entrepreneurs, but how are you going to execute that strategy? You need to get people, as you say, get them around the table, get their ideas, and have an environment of psychological safety, which is basically people are not afraid to speak up. They won't be shot down. No one's going to say, "Oh, we tried that 5 years ago. That's not going to work," or "What a dumb idea," or "Oh, you went to such and such a college. No wonder you think like that." No ridicule. And Google did research and showed that that's the number one factor for collaboration in teams, is that psychological safety, that knowing that I can make a mistake, we're going to learn from a mistake, or that I can throw my ideas out there and I won't be ridiculed for my ideas.
Yeah, this young people, conundrum, right? And this is something that we talk about in a lot of groups. Ken and I had guests on to speak to this as well, right? And just like every other generation, if it was the back in the day with the greasers, right? When they were the bad apples. And it seems like every generation, says that about the young generation, right? Elvis Presley, heaven forbid, look what he did to a generation, right? And at the end of the day, it's, young people being young people. And I think to your point, this idea of having more meaning in what we do is really big for them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me just interject one thing along that too, because I love that thought, and it's one of those things that I talk a lot about is maybe the key place for having these types of meetings is to start building your business plan as a team rather than it being a one-man effort, because every decision that's made in business planning affects every department. So if those departments don't get included, they don't feel a part of it, and yet if they are included, it becomes their plan. And I believe it has huge synergy and huge power for the team.
Absolutely. There's no question about it. And, the name of your show is, that's what people need to do. They need to level up, and you can't level up, as one person. Yeah. So here's a thought I love to share with you and with your audience is that, I used to have 23 people reporting to me when I was a vice president of a major U.S. bank. And, back in those days, we were told you want to be the smartest person in the room.
Right.
Today, I say no. You want to, as a leader, you want to create the smartest room possible and bring in people who are more intelligent than you, guide it, facilitate that discussion, and now you're going to get a better plans and better strategy going forward.
Yeah, I lead a group every week called the Top 100, and it's a group of thought leaders kind of in the industry. And literally all we do is go with a blank slate every Wednesday, and we throw around what's happening in the world today in our business world, right? And the amount of ideas that come up from people pitching stuff back and forth, and that kind of I don't know what you would call it, freeform, thinking among some of the most powerful minds that I've had the honor of working with in the space, right? So I get it. I've learned more, listening to ideas and concepts from people than I've ever given. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I do tell people that my mission in life is to be a much better student than a teacher, right? That I want to make sure that I'm always open to, some of the ideas that are out there. And I really love this concept of, kind of making better decisions to, help us generate better thinking and really use those to come up with these better outcomes, right? Yeah. I'm just going to pop your book up here for 1 second. I got it on Amazon. I've got the Canadian link because that's where I go. But certainly you can, I know that you're available on .com. Is there a preferred place where you would direct people to get it?
No, the books are all on Amazon, both in Kindle and paperback formats. As a small publisher, that's the best place to go these days. It's just too chaotic to try and get into other distribution routes. I do have the newest book actually came out in audiobook about 3 days ago. So I actually now have my first audiobook available. So that's going to be interesting to see how that does.
And sorry, is that a new book or just an audio format of your existing book?
No, I came out with a new book about 3 months ago called Human Leadership, and it builds on the better decisions, but it talks about how we need to lead in today's times. Humany is a word I created. It's HUMONY, and it combines humanity and harmony, and talks about kind of leading what both of you just talked about is to get collaboration in the workplace. We need harmony. We need, and when you're harmonized as an individual or an organization, you're in flow. Things are working. The drama is reduced. That's it right there. Thank you. So human leadership is a word I created. I got somebody who wants to make it into the dictionary next year, so I hope he's successful in his little campaign to do so. But the basis premise of this book is look, managing people is a 1980s construct. No one wakes up in the morning and wants to be managed, and certainly no one wakes up in the morning and wants to be micromanaged. People want to be led. And so as I say in the book, you manage policy, you manage processes, you manage procedures, but you lead people. And I think that's the big change that people need to think about for 2023 and beyond.
I love it. And so you can get the book there for anyone that's that's looking at Human Leadership. I'll definitely be getting a copy for myself. And I had the other book up. Maybe if I could leave it up there.
I'll post links in the chat.
Oh, that's great. Really appreciate it. And Stephen, in respect for your time and that of our audience, we are coming down on the, the bottom of the half hour. So if you had any, one piece of advice for people finishing up the year, trying to create a better headspace, what would that be?
I would go back to something that you said, Wes, and that is continuous learning. I think, look, I've trained over 10,000 people in the last 25 years, mentored, coached, trained. And every year I still read, or sorry, every month I still read 35 to 40 articles on leadership. I read 5 to 6 books on leadership. I try to write one. So continuous learning. I mean, if you got to have a goal, personal or professional, for 2023, make it continuous learning. Lifelong learning is important. Toss aside the idea that some of this stuff is soft skills. They're all essential skills. Whether you want to learn about emotional intelligence or adaptability or resiliency, just keep learning, and that'll keep your brain fresh as well. So it kind of ties in the two conversations here.
I love it. Well, I can't thank you enough, Stephen, and for everyone that's tuned in with Ken and I today. Can't thank you enough for tuning in every week. And until next time, remember to keep learning.
Keep leveling up.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Leveling up.
Keep leveling up.